have a look.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Toki.MORI, the ghost living inside your machine, and I'm here to have a look at From the Top. This is a top battling rogue-lite inspired by Beyblade. Oh my goodness, what a blast from the past. It turns out I'm exactly the target audience for this game. I'm the target audience. This game was made for me specifically. I got into watching Beyblade videos late last year because, surprise, surprise, it turns out Beyblade has actually still been going this whole time, and modern Beyblades are truly a marvel of engineering. They feel like magic. It's really cool to see. So I was excited when I saw this come across my feed when it was going viral. It ended up being really popular on social media for a little bit because, you know, it's a game based on an early 2000s toy-based anime property. You know, you have things like Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, etc., etc. It's another one of those games that everybody was really into. And I was surprised to find out that the game itself, despite the idea being really popular on social media, the game itself strangely didn't get as much traction as I expected. And I was really surprised about that because this game looks really cool and mechanically it feels very unique compared to a lot of other roguelike games, specifically because it's based on something that you don't normally see in the indie space. But jumping into the game, this was developed and published by Junkfall33, who is an independent developer with only this game under their belt. As far as I could find, this was their only published game, and it was released in December of last year. Before I start gushing about all of the things that I love about this game, and don't get me wrong, I do have several criticisms about this game, but I do truly adore it. Let's start by jumping into the options menu. Now, one of my first immediate criticisms about this game, it feels very bizarre. It feels very, very bizarre in its design because this menu feels like it was designed with mobile in mind. It feels like it was designed to be a mobile game. However, as far as I could find, there isn't actually a mobile version of this game, and I was searching the developer's social media, and it didn't seem like they had a mobile version planned. So it feels very bizarre when you have things like these on and off switches, which are in the style of mobile phone menus. You have this menu that's click and draggable. It's designed to be clicked and dragged. Like you can scroll up and down, but it feels very jagged and fast in the way it scrolls. So it feels more natural to sort of click and drag, which is so bizarre being, as far as I know, a PC only game. It feels so strange. And that's, I think, one of my big immediate criticisms. However, I will say there are a few things about this options menu that I like. First of all, we have several volume sliders. You know what I love? When games have more than 2 or 3 volume sliders. Most games normally just have master volume or master and music, and then maybe sound effects. This splits sound effects into 2 different sections, which I think is really good. We have some screen effects. These are for certain particular camera movements. You can turn on and off shake, zoom, and rotate, which is very, very nice for accessibility, as well as use this reduce filter effect. I think the filter effect for this game, this sort of pixelated filter, looks really, really cool and gives the game a lot of character. However, I understand that this kind of thing can be hard on the eye, so it's nice that they have the option to reduce it. It still looks very stylish, but they sort of use that effect to hide the very limited 3D modeling in this game. I do think it still looks pretty good, but I'll keep it on for the sake of this video. One very big problem with this, full screen on or off, there aren't any resolution options. So that's a very big, unfortunate downside. You can adjust the size of the cursor, which I thought was funny. I've never felt like I needed a bigger cursor in this game. Again, for some reason, this feels like the type of thing that was developed for mobile specifically. I don't know why it's here. It's very bizarre. And then there's a give up button, which you can turn on and off. I don't know why you would need to turn it off. It pops up sometimes. when a battle is taking too long or you're losing a battle. It's nice that it exists. I mean, it's good that the option is there, I suppose. And another little problem I have with this options menu is the control. Well, not necessarily the options menu specifically, but the controls. So this game, like I said, this game feels like it was weirdly designed as a mobile game despite not having a mobile port. The only control in this game is your mouse. The only thing that you have to control your top is the mouse. You click things with the mouse, you move around with the mouse, you target with the mouse, you attack with the mouse. No other buttons. I tested it with a controller. It seems to technically work, but it's very buggy, and obviously there aren't any rebindable keys. You can't rebind the controls. So despite the fact that you can technically plug in a controller, and it's weird because when I was testing it out, you can only control the cursor with the right stick instead of the left stick. It's very bizarre. And also the click dragging effect doesn't really work on a controller for some reason. But yeah, it's a fairly decent options menu, especially because this is a low graphical fidelity sort of retro aesthetic. It's not like you need that much in terms of specific graphical options. There are quite a few good options, but I do have some big criticisms of it, including lack of resolution options, the bizarre mobile design, and the lack of ability to rebind controller, even though it's technically not supposed to be played with the controller. But yeah, let's start by... I'm just going to start by jumping into a game and ignoring the tutorial. So, when you start the game for the first time, you only have access to one character. We're not going to worry about the rest of these. I'm just going to start with Gob, who is the first character you get. Now, the first thing that I immediately noticed jumping into this game was it feels very Inscription. Like, the overall presentation feels extremely inspired by Inscription, as you saw with the character that popped up at the beginning there. But you are trapped here by a sort of game master that is making you play tops. You have to go down these layers. It's the reverse of Slay the Spire, where you're going from the top to the bottom, and there are 3 layers for you to beat a run completely. So, you know, very, very typical roguelite design where you have this map, you have the branching paths. A lot of roguelites sort of take this map design from Slay the Spire. Not too big of a problem. I wish it could be a little bit more interesting and creative, but you know, it's typical fare for the genre. We'll start by jumping into a match. Okay, so this is how this game works. Being based off of Beyblade, there are basically 3 classes of top with there are a few differences in this game, but compared to how real life Beyblade works, there are generally 3 or 4 classes of top. You have an attack type top, you have a defense type top, and you have a stamina type top. And in real life, the way that the parts that you use interact with physics determines how it moves, how much it moves, how strong its hits are, how long it can spin for, how much it can take attacks before it falls over. There are a lot of really cool variables to real life Beyblade, and I think this game actually does an amazing job at translating that into this sort of digital gameplay. So generally when you're making a top or a Beyblade in real life, there are, for the most part, the designs have changed over the years, but in this game in particular, and, you know, as a generalization, a Beyblade or a top, I'm just gonna say tops. Tops are made from 3 parts. You have a top part, which is the primary part for the top. It's going to determine what your primary abilities are. So your ability is something that happens when you click. This says... our top piece is Flame. On activation, dash strongly to mouse position, okay? On this, oh god, that's a lot of text. On this, our top piece is Guard. And when you activate the effect, it has all of these following effects that are really good for a defense type top. And for our stamina top, our top piece is Control. While activated, just move to mouse location. Allows you to move very quickly to any location. If we look on our Flame Princess, our middle piece sort of determines what happens. It determines how the top reacts when it clashes with another top, and then the bottom piece is sort of the tip, or the... yeah, we'll just say the tip. The tip, which determines how it moves, because in real life, the way they design Beyblade tips is like, oh, maybe it's a tip that has more traction, which allows it to stay in place more. And it would make that a defense type Beyblade, which stops it from being shot out of the arena. Or if it's like a stamina type tip, then maybe it's like, oh, it doesn't have much traction, which means it gets hit out of the arena very easily, but it allows the Beyblade to spin longer. And they do a really good job at sort of translating these real life mechanics into the game. I've done a lot of testing with some of these parts, and it really does feel, other than the fact that you're able to control your top, it really does feel like real life Beyblades. Now, when you're choosing one of your tops, because you can get multiple tops that you drag into the arena, and that lets you switch which one you're using, you want to look at what the opponent's is. This is an aggressive type top. So what you want to do is look at our types. Okay, so we have an aggressive top, we have a defensive top, and we have a stamina type top. Basically, aggressive tops beat stamina tops because stamina tops have a hard time gaining traction staying in the arena. They're very light in order to spin for a long amount of time. So if you hit them with an aggressive top, which hits very hard, you can deal more damage to their stamina, which I'll explain in a second, or you can launch them out of the arena very, very easily. Stamina type tops beat defense type tops because defense type tops don't do much damage on their own, and they have less stamina than stamina type tops. So stamina type tops can outspin them very easily. Defense type tops are able to take hits from aggressive tops very easily, so that's how defense type tops beat that. It's a very rock, paper, scissors type matchup, but there are a few details that we will get into. I don't know if we'll get into them, but there are a few details later into the game that make it a little bit more difficult to determine what type of top and what parts you need to use. But that's the general strategy with this game, is aggressive beats stamina, stamina beats defense, and defense beats aggressive. So we are fighting an aggressive type top. He has the same abilities as our Flame Princess, so we want our defensive type top. Now, what this does is it has an ability that makes it so that it doesn't take damage when we get hit, and it will sort of try and stay in place as we play. So this is how you play the game. You drag the top you want to use out. It's going to switch it. We're going to launch our defense type top. You hold the mouse button, you let it charge up, and then you let it rip. So this is the game. You use your cursor. Whoops, I made a horrible mistake by talking instead of paying attention to the game. But this is how the game is played. You use your cursor to direct the movement of your top, and we'll do a little bit better this time. And you use the mouse button to activate your ability. So on the top left-hand corner, oh, nice. Okay, so on the top left-hand corner, you'll notice a few things. We have, number one, we have a stamina bar, which is the colored bar in the background. This determines how much longer we have left to spin. When you stop spinning, you lose. If you get launched out of the arena, you lose. So I'm going to launch again, and you're going to keep your eye on our stamina bar. Nice. So every time we activate our ability, it stops our stamina bar from draining. Oh, that's my bad. And I've died. But you could see there, we were slowly draining stamina as we spun, and that'll just happen naturally over time, but you also lose stamina for clashing with another top. You also lose stamina for clashing with the environment. You see the way this arena is laid out with several walls. Fun fact, this is actually based on the most recent version of the Beyblade arena, which is like it's like this weird shape that allows Beyblades to go really fast and hit really hard. But yeah, when you clash, you lose stamina. As you spin, you slowly lose stamina. And your job is to try to get the opponent's stamina to 0 or knock them out. I'm going to go with my offense type top, and we're going to try and clash with this. Oh, nice. And you see we reduced his stamina to 0 because we hit him really hard. Okay, so I'm going to choose my next thing. I'm going to go into a shop just so I can show you, and I am going to buy either a top or an item, or I can buy both. I'm going to buy Stone Fortress because we no longer have a defense top, and this is a defense type top. So you can see here, it has a few different abilities. It has the Stone Top, which allows you to summon a pillar. It has Fortress, which ignores the effects and stamina loss from hitting static objects. And it has defensive movement. So we actually got into a really lucky situation, which I will describe in a little bit. But I'm going to buy this, and I'm going to buy this ability, which is a passive that you keep. It's kind of like Relics from Slay the Spire, but this will make it so that everything will take stamina damage when they hit a wall. And this applies to both sides, except if I'm using Stone Fortress, then guess who gets to ignore stamina damage from static objects? Ho ho! But yeah, that's the base gameplay of the game. Before we move on, I have a few criticisms I'd like to voice about the overall aesthetic and the menu and UI design in this game. The menus and just the general UI and how it works feels very messy and clunky. So I wish I could go back a screen. Maybe I'll look at it on this screen. Kinda. A lot of the text when especially in the shop screens where you have a couple things in a row, a lot of the text in this game feels too close together, and sometimes there isn't much in the way of sort of visual separators that allow you to parse the text without getting confused. For example, if I'm like hovering over Stone Fortress here and it's showing you all of these abilities, it's just everything is the same color. Everything's all black and white and gray, and there are too many overlapping UI elements. So if I'm hovering over this, it's like it's appearing on top of the other text that's on the screen. It feels like the spacing between letters is a little close together. There's generally too much text on the screen. There's no visual separators. Like this box, this translucent box is the closest you get to a visual separator, and it's not that opaque, so it's fairly easy to have it clash with another UI element. It feels very difficult to read at first glance until you've been playing the game for a little bit. Additionally, I've had another problem with the UI sometimes, where it doesn't happen every time, strangely, but sometimes the click detection on some of the UI elements is either inaccurate or buggy. Like, I was having problems with one of my previous runs where I was trying to click the options menu, but for some reason it wouldn't detect my mouse when I was hovering over the gear unless I was at the very bottom. It was so bizarre, and I have had that problem a bit. It's inconsistent, so I can't get it to happen all the time. But that's another issue that I have with the UI. It's a little bit buggy. Hope that gets patched out. But yeah, I'm going to choose to... Should I repair all my tops, or should I revive a random destroyed top? Let's repair all my tops. Okay. So if you look at my tops on the top left-hand corner, every time I lose a top in battle, let me just show you an example. I'm going to put out my stamina top to show you what happens when I die in a round. Oh, so if I take... Oh, that's bad. Or good, I guess, technically. So if you saw what happened to my opponent's top in the top right, they had 2 hearts previously, and when they went out the arena, they had 1 heart. But that's what happens when you lose a round. If one of my tops loses all of their hearts, it gets destroyed forever until I resurrect it. And that's what happened with my defense top that I had originally. Now I'm going to go for a cool strategy that I discovered with this game, where since I got Stone Fortress, which has the ability to summon pillars, and I got this, which creates it causes static elements to do damage. If I'm playing as Stone Fortress and I pop a pillar underneath you, I'm missing. Guy that's really bad at aiming, he's going to take damage from these. And the bizarre thing about this ability is you can pop those right on... Oh my god. Oh, that was him. Okay. Oh no, that was me. Oh, I got hit too much. But the funny thing about Stone Fortress is you can pop a pillar right underneath the Beyblade if you're more accurate than I am. And it like does insta damage underneath them. It's crazy. And that's actually another criticism that I have about this game. This game kind of feels pretty unbalanced. Let's grab one of these guys. This game doesn't feel properly balanced. It feels like, ideally, the 3 primary types of tops should be generally balanced with each other. So offense beats stamina, stamina beats defense, defense beats offense. But with some of the, especially with the later fights in Zone 2 onward, it feels like the abilities get too weird and too strong on either your tops or the opponent's tops. And it gets to a point where you either, regardless of what your build is, a lot of the builds feel really weak. So you eventually hit a point where it's like, oh, I guess this enemy just has an ability that insta-kills all of my tops and I have nothing to prepare for it. Or you do what I did, and you just happen to get Stone Fortress and Spike City. And let me say, Spike City stacks. So if you go into his shop and you get more Spike Cities in the ability slot, you can stack 2 or... I think you only need 3 of them. Because on my first run that I won, I had 3 Spike Cities and I had Stone Fortress, and all I had to do was click on my opponent's top once, and it insta-killed them all the way throughout the entire run, all the way down to the final boss. I was facing the final boss and I was like, oh man, this looks like it's gonna be hard. They have like 3 or 4 tops. They seem really strong. They have a lot of crazy abilities, but you just start the game, shoot a pillar, and they get insta-gibbed. That's another big criticism about this game that I have. It just feels very unbalanced, despite how cool it is, in my opinion. Oh, this is a really cool one. Okay. So this is another thing I kind of wish there was more of. This is something I kind of wish there was more of. So all throughout this game, the only way to acquire new tops and new top pieces is to buy a full top in the store. You go into the store and you're like, I want this guard, and you buy it, and then you have a new top. And for the most part, I think all of the tops that you can buy are basically pre-made. So they have a bunch of specific parts that go together as one top. So every time you see Stone Fortress in the top, it's always going in the shop. It's always going to be the same top. It's always going to have stone, it's going to have fortress, and it's going to have defense 20. Now, the only way for you to adjust which parts you get on which top is to find one of these fusion areas. Which I think is a real shame, because I think one of the cool parts about Beyblade, at least when I was a kid, is that you would be able to mix and match all of these parts and create new and interesting designs for your top. And even though it has this system of each top is made of 3 parts, and you can technically customize them when you reach these fusion zones, it feels like that element isn't as large as I think it would be. Like, you can't buy single parts, you can't find parts out in the wild, you can't buy different kinds of mixed and matched parts, you have to buy specific prefab tops. So I kind of wish this element existed more throughout the game, rather than just being one space where you get to do this. I found a really strong combination is to take a control wheel and a guard shield, use those together, and then we get to pick which parts we have. So our top, we are going to pick, I believe I want guard. Yeah, we're going to pick guard, we're going to pick shield, and then on the bottom, we're going to pick stamina 50. This means we are the tankiest possible top while also having 50 stamina, which makes it really, really strong and good against a lot of really aggressive tops, especially bosses, because bosses have pretty high stamina and they're usually more offensive. So they do a lot of damage. So that means this ends up being really good against those types of bosses. We're going to go into another fight. We're going against a defense type, so I'm going to bring out my stamina type. And this is sort of another thing. I guess it's technically a problem with Beyblade. Oh. Where... Here we go. Aggressive fights end up being really fast, where either you knock them out of the arena very quickly with your aggressive top, or your aggressive top loses all of its stamina and it dies. But when you're a stamina top versus a stamina top, or a stamina top versus a defense top, it feels like rounds go on for a really long time and are a little bit less interesting. Until you unlock some of the more interesting defense or stamina-based tops, like Stone Fortress. Just trying to escape this. So, if you look on the corners of the screen, where our stamina bars are, we also have these white bars. I forgot to explain this earlier. But we have these white bars that is basically like the energy that we use for our special abilities. So my special ability lets me move around the arena very accurately and very quickly. His special ability allows him to defend against attacks and not lose stamina as often. And the bar determines how long you can do that, and you have to wait for it to recharge before you can do it again. So in this type of match, what I'm doing is I'm trying to avoid getting hit by him while he has his shield up so that I'm not wasting hits, because I'll lose stamina, but he won't. And then I'm using my ability to run away so he can't hit me. And then I'm charging back in to hit him when he's out of shield, which means he takes damage. He takes more damage from hits. There we go. So there's a really cool strategic element to the way abilities work and the way type matchups work. It's really cool because type matchups aren't as simple as they aren't as simple as like an RPG where it's like, oh, if you're using this type against this type, it takes double damage, you know, like kind of like Pokemon. There are some interesting strategic elements. Now, I did forget one thing. When you use the same top in two rounds in a row, you don't regain that much stamina. So that's why I lost that fight, even though I was more powerful than him. I spent too much stamina on the first fight, which put me down to like 20 or something, I think. And then I only regained a little bit of stamina for the second fight. But now that I've died, I get my whole stamina bar back, which is very nice. You don't have to wait that long. But yeah, this is another... It's kind of... I don't think it's something that needs to be fixed, because this is kind of how regular Beyblade works too, is, you know, a fight that goes down to stamina is, by design, going to take a really long time. I completely messed up. There is an element of physics to this game. There's an element of physics to this game because it's hard to see when it has the effect on, but the arena is in the shape of a bowl, and that determines how you move sometimes. Because most tops can't just move in any direction they want, like this one. For the most part, you're kind of spinning in a circle, and you are at the mercy of how physics works. But yeah, like I said, just by design, stamina fights end up taking a really long time, and that's just a natural consequence of being based on Beyblade and being based on the physics engine. So there. You beat that guy? Oh god, he had 3 lives? Or no, he had 2 lives and then I died twice. So I'm gonna try to get... you know what I should have done? I should have used Stone Fortress and then walled them off. But yeah, I think this game is overall... The top battling gameplay, I think, is really well designed. I think the balance is a little bit off because some strategies feel very weak and some strategies feel extremely OP. Some of the enemies feel way too strong for the strength of the tops that you get when you're just starting the game. Let's try to get through this so I can show you a boss. So in this game, there are 3 layers. There we go. Perfect. So in this game, there are 3 layers. You're going down each layer, similar to Slay the Spire, until you get to the boss. Let's repair all of my tops until you get to the boss. One small thing is that the boss in each layer is the same every single time. So you're not getting a variety of a couple different bosses. Every single time you go down to the bottom of a layer, the first boss is always going to be the same. The second boss is always going to be the same. And something interesting is I think there are multiple endings in this game, because when you get to a boss, it won't show it now because I've already gotten past the bosses, but when you get to a boss, there's a little bit of dialogue and there are a few small choices that you can make. And some of the choices I think can affect the ending. There was a choice I made, there were a couple choices I made later into the game that caused me to, I think, fight a certain specific boss. But for the most part, hello. It's a little bit of dialogue. The dialogue is extremely reduced because I've already been through the game once. I think the best strategy for this guy. So this guy has the ability to suck your top in and the ability to steal stamina. So I think the best strategy for this is to do this. But yeah, there are a few choices that you can make among bosses, and I think they affect whether or not you get a certain ending. Okay. As far as I know, this is like the best strategy for this boss. Oh, I just realized. I think I made a dumb mistake. I think I accidentally didn't actually fuse my tops earlier. I think I messed up. I think I forgot to click a specific UI element. Okay, now I don't have enough stamina to beat this. But yeah, oh my god. The music for the bosses, so for the most part, there isn't that much music in this game, but there's a lot of really cool music for the bosses. And whenever you fight a boss, there's a really cool arena effect. Later in the game, it gets really trippy and psychedelic. I don't know if I'm going to beat this guy. Later in the game, it gets really trippy and psychedelic. I'm just gonna lock this guy out with one of these. Nice. Sorry, I have to lock in. Oh no, I'm gonna lose. I feel like I'm gonna lose. Flame Princess, you get out there. I might die here. Come on. Nice. Okay, he's out. Fog. But yeah, so with the bosses, I feel like the writing for the bosses, so I think there's a little bit of interesting world building in this game. There are some cool story details that you find out as you go through boss dialogue, but I think the bosses themselves aren't written very interestingly. It feels like the game doesn't take itself particularly seriously in a way that makes me less interested in the story. Even though I think some of the lore in this game is intriguing, because what seems to be set up is you've been kidnapped by this all-powerful game master, and there was like a tragedy that caused something bad to happen to the rest of the world. I think I'm gonna lose here because I messed up. I wanted to combine my stamina and defense tops in order to make a really unstoppable defense top, but I think I completely goofed that up. Ah, I'm dead. I'm 100% gonna die here. But yeah, these fights go until you lose all your tops. Come on. Nice. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do it. It's a good thing there's a give up button. But yeah, I think I'll just exit. I'll just exit out for now. Send me to the main menu. Okay, I do have a few other small things I have to say about this game. That's pretty much the base gameplay loop of this game. You go down, you pick fights, you do the fights, you pick certain paths, and then you fight bosses. There are a few problems that I have had with this game outside of the gameplay. Well, there's a little bit in the gameplay. First of all, the downtime between rounds feels a little bit slow sometimes. So I don't know if this has to do with the programming of the game, but it feels like sometimes after your top gets knocked out or you knock out one of their tops, the time it takes before it lets you drag in a new top to fight is a little bit slow, and it ends up to the downtime feeling very laggy, even though you just want to like get back into the fight. You just want to put a new top in. And I think as a consequence, I've actually had a few crashes related to the downtime. Like, sometimes when I think the downtime between rounds is over and I'm about to drag in a new top, I'll grab a top from the side, but it won't be time for me to put in a new top yet. And what ends up happening is something, because it's not time for me to drag a top, but for some reason it's letting me drag a top, it's resulted in a couple of crashes. And I've had one time specifically where I got one of those crashes, and then I was like, oh, well, it saved my game, right? So I'll just continue. And then I hit continue, which I can show you here. And then I hit continue, and then I wouldn't be able to click the boss because I was in the middle of a boss fight. I tried to drag out a top, it crashed the game, and then when I came back to this menu, the boss fight was unclickable and it completely soft locked my game. So be wary. That's a big issue that I had with this game in relation to A, the downtime, and B, just, you know, crashing bugs. Another few small things. Some of the visual effects, like I said, later into the game, they get really trippy and flashy. So they could be a little bit problematic. During one of the fights specifically, there is an epilepsy warning for an especially bad scene, but I think that it would be nice if in the options menu, there was some sort of reduced visual effects option related to the flashing lights and animations. This is pretty good so far. I feel like they could do with a few more other visual effects options. Other than that, the game overall feels fairly short, even for a roguelite. Like I said, there aren't like rotating bosses, so there's only 4, maybe 5 different bosses. So once you've beaten a run, for the most part, it feels like you've beaten the game. I guess you would probably want to beat a run twice so you can get the alternate boss ending. But overall, it feels very short, especially when you, like I said, when you get a really OP combo like the one I got during one of my runs, which was the Stone Fortress top, with 3 of these spike cities that caused every single one of my fights to end in an insta-kill with a pillar, the game ends up being feeling very short. I have about 3-ish hours on my profile before I beat the game, which is, it's short. Thinking about it, I think that's actually fairly decent for the price. This game is very cheap. It's only about $3.99. So keep that in mind when you're checking out this game. But yeah, that's about it. It has some very complex systems in terms of top combining and specific types of abilities. But I do think it's really cool. It's marred with a couple of issues that make it tough to play over time. But I do highly recommend this game if you're into Beyblade or are interested in a game that feels like it's mechanically unique from a lot of roguelites that are on the market. This has been From the Top. My name has been Toki.MORI. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all next time.